Can you imagine a Congress passing the general legislation that they passed under the guise of emergency? They're catching semantic terms, you know, to give him power to act in an emergency. Where's the check on him? Imagine the authority that they gave him without spelling out their checks over your economic life, over wages and rents and prices. Why, you're setting up a one-man dictator over the economy of this country. If that Congress doesn't get busy before it adjourns, and there's some indication that at long last they're going to see this. Yesterday's paper carried a story of Bill Proxmire's proposal to introduce some legislation that will check Nixon. Let me say that what Nixon needs is legislation that makes it possible for him to make his proposals for controls of the economy, and it's got to be controlled because it's a military economy and not a free economy. None of you live in a free economy anymore. You live in a military economy. But what the Congress has got to set up, the administrative authority to check executive orders.
There are three reasons, I think, that we should have a primary for Tarrant County. Number one, it would give the people of this area an opportunity to meet many of the candidates for the nomination. Number two, it would bring Fort Worth and Tarrant County unquestionably national exposure, which I think is very important. And number three, and extremely important, is the fact that I think it would heighten interest in politics for the spring primaries. I believe that we would more than double the number of candidates, or the number of people voting in our primaries in the spring if we do have this particular primary.
What makes you think that national candidates are going to pay any attention whatsoever to Tarrant County?
They pay attention to all areas of the country. I noticed that they were having a preference primary in a little village of 2,000 in Vermont, and Pete McCloskey, a Republican candidate for the presidency, has already been there, and they were expecting many of the Democrats. So I think if a small village in Vermont could attract many candidates, I believe that a city and county of more than 700,000 here in the great state of Texas could do much better.
This extensive report has been some time in the making. Many thousands of questionnaires and personal interviews had to be completed before a good master plan could be formulated. Many new things are planned for this zoo, including a monorail and many, many more exhibits. When the report was released this morning at a breakfast meeting, I asked Master Plan Committee Co-Chairman Harry Tennyson to take me on a model tour of the new park.
First of all, we're going to have the monorail that goes all the way around the zoo. It's over a mile in length. It will give a beautiful view of what we have now in the African diorama. You can see on the other side of it, with the new zoo complex, the Asiatic diorama, the very special exhibits like the okapi from the Congo and the bongo from Kenya. You have our new entrance over here, which contains an auditorium. It'll be a big restaurant, nice offices, and an art museum and hall of fame of all the trophy animals of the world. Then moving around this way, these will be open areas called veldt areas. Use the African word, and where the animals will be in their natural surroundings. Move right on down to the most fabulous thing of all, which will be a treetops area, like the treetops that you and I know in Kenya. And it'll be full of hippo, crocodile, and then all the birds that are indigenous to that part of the world.
All in all, the zoo would contain 3 times its current area. There would be an admission fee to the zoo, and the rides would be moved to another area. Total cost would be in the area of about $10 million, half of which could be obtained if voters are asked approval in a general obligation bond election. The Master Plan Committee will present the plan to the Park and Recreation Board tomorrow morning. That's the next step in what officials hope will be the road leading to an all-new Fort Worth Zoological Park. This is Jerry Park, Channel 8 News on the Move at the Fort Worth Zoo.
The basic concept of ensured man-to-man representation is one I share. Now, I'm sure that there perhaps are some exceptions to that in multiple districts. I assume what you're getting at is elections to the state legislatures and other local elections, perhaps town selectmen and the rest. And in some occasions they're elected in a slate of 3, sometimes they're elected individually. The closer you can get, obviously, to individual representation, the better the democratic process can be.
One courtroom.
It was shortly after 8 o'clock when more than 100 officers with helmets and bulletproof vests were crowded in the halls of the jail, and there was loud noise, and the doors to the jail had been roped shut by the prisoners with strips of blankets and sheets, when this man, Sheriff Clarence Jones, began talking with them. Shortly after that, homemade knives and other weapons began coming through the doors and down the hallways, and there was no conflict. The prisoners went back to bed. Sheriff Jones, what happened? What did you say? What did they say?
They apparently had some grievances, and I don't know what they all are right now, Trav. We're going upstairs now and talk to their representatives. The thing that I get at this point, I think, probably in the area of medical attention is the major one, quite possibly in the area of food. If it is food, this I can't hardly understand, because I think you've had a few meals there.
One of the prisoners told Bob Gooding that they did this to get your attention, to get you up to talk to them. Do you get up regularly?
I probably don't get up as often as I should. In fact, I had a couple of the young men tell me that they had written me letters that I haven't seen.
Sheriff, how is it that they were so ready to rumble and then they started passing their weapons to you and untying things and going to bed? What did you say? How did that come about?
I just told them that, asked them what the problem was. They said that they had some grievances, and told them that I would not talk to them in conditions such as this. This was not conducive to any kind of settlement of anything. They were aware, of course, that we were there to do what had to be done, and I told them the best thing to do was to sit down and talk about the entire situation.
Several representatives or several prisoners came out immediately after you talked with them. Why did they come out?
That's correct. We're going upstairs now and talk to them.
So at this time, Sheriff Jones is headed for the jail kitchen where that food is served to talk with them about their grievances and about their problems. Thanks, Sheriff.
Can you tell us just basically what's happened? We've got this.
The American people are rightly asking, what happened to Mr. Nixon's much heralded new American Revolution, supposedly the greatest national blueprint since the Constitution, but which was consigned to the scrap heap in the August 15th television spectacular? What happened to welfare reform, revenue sharing, the drug program, protection of our environment, assistance to state and local law enforcement, education reform, consumer protection? Television dramatics and public relations bombshells cannot substitute for real presidential leadership.
The voting has been extremely light today at the polling places I've checked. Here at Paschal High School, where 3 precincts are combined, there are 4,600 registered voters. Out of these, by early afternoon, only about 200 had voted. At issue is $20 million in bond money. That'll finance the expansion of TCJC South and Northeast campuses and will build the planned Northwest campus. I'm Jay Lewis. For a report on a different kind of election, here's Phil Reynolds in Garland.
You're not going to believe this, but this piece of land just inside the Garland city limits, near the intersection of Naaman School Road and Brand Road, has been the subject of controversy between the cities of University Park and Garland. University Park, which owns the land, has proposed that University Park and Garland share the site as a sanitary landfill. The Garland City Council agreed. They thought that was a pretty good idea. But some Garland citizens disagreed. They formed an organization and forced a referendum on the matter, and today Garland voters are trying to decide whether to dump or not to dump, so to speak, in this proposed sanitary landfill site. Well, it may be an academic matter. Voting isn't very brisk, but University Park says regardless of the outcome, it's going to use the ground as a sanitary landfill, which may be what they mean when they talk about the right of eminent domain. Phil Reynolds, Channel 8 News on the Move, in a future sanitary landfill in Garland.